Hello and welcome to India's World. I am Vishal Dahiya, and this week we will talk about India-Australia 2+2 dialogue and the bilateral relation. Now, the third edition of India-Australia Foreign and Defence Secretaries 2+2 dialogue was held this week in New Delhi. Both sides welcomed the recent progress made in deepening bilateral political, economic, security and defence cooperation. They exchanged views on achieving the shared objective of peace, prosperity and progress in the Indo-Pacific region and the need for enhanced collaboration to counter the threat of terrorism and violent extremism through increased information sharing. To further analyze the status of India-Australia bilateral relationship in the context of emerging scenarios and the road ahead, we have with us a distinguished panel of guests. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with former Mr. Shilkant Sharma with us here. We also have with us Commander Abhijit Singh, Head of Maritime Policy Initiatives, ORF, and we also have with us Mr. K.V. Prasad, Senior Associate Editor of the Tribune. Let me begin with you, Mr. Sharma, and let's try and look at the India-Australia bilateral relationship in a holistic perspective. Not only their bilateral relations, but also with respect to other, global scenarios which concern both these countries.
Over the last 20 years, India, Australia have come quite close in areas which matter for India, in the sense that in the global arena, Australia generally is with India, be that the nuclear or be that human rights or be that in the other, international climate change. All these major global issues, Australia and India share a perspective and they support each other. Then in the way the strategic environment has evolved over the last 20 years, the Indo-Pacific concept, both India and Australia, they have common perceptions. They share the maritime neighborhood, the distance between Chennai and Perth is closer than Chennai and Beijing, for instance. And in the rules-based international order, the whole discussion about law of the sea and right of communication, sea lanes of communication, Australia and India share this. Then within the Asian perspective, you have this ASEAN-led dimension, where under the ARF or East Asia Summit, India and Australia participate. Our Prime Minister met Mr. Morrison in Singapore just for the East Asia Summit time,
And the next week he is going to be here in Delhi.
He is here. So this frequency of exchanges, meetings, and the comfort level between the two is very high.
Okay.
We are assured that Australia will understand us and mutual understanding. Now, where is the problem? A problem in the sense that where is the lacking part? The trade is very small. Generally India's trade with many countries now, despite a slumping global trade, is in the low two-digit billions, 10 to 20 billion, many countries. But Australia, India have not even reached that level, it's about 5 point few billions,
Okay.
So, and then again, so that is not that crucial. What is important is that in advanced technologies, critical technologies, cyber, Australians are also working very closely with the Americans and the Europeans. And India, Australia should work together in this area because we have common long-term interest in this area and we may have compatibilities. So in this, in the statement issued and earlier also with Prime Minister's meeting, this area was emphasized. So these are the strands of the overall relationship where India and Australia should build upon.
Okay.
There are concerns about this whole region where again Australians understand India's position and they feel the anxiety which India feels, and they also have a similar anxiety. So there is a need to build a broad relationship. That's why this dialogue, which has foreign secretaries and defense secretaries, we have the Quad, where ministerial level they met together. There was some hiccups because we didn't invite them for the Malabar exercise. But the Quad meeting where the ministerial level, it has been raised to ministerial level, it implies that India, Australia, Japan and US are working together.
Okay.
So now where is the guiding principle? I think for India the guiding principle is the Prime Minister's Shangri-La dialogue statement, where he talks about the inclusive Indo-Pacific and ASEAN centrality. So India's approach to Indo-Pacific he defines, and we have generally continued in that direction.
Okay, so that's those are the strategic
Broad,
compatibilities
yes,
and the broad overview of how both nations look at several things. But it's more of regional issues and the global issues specifically. Let's now come to one which has been mentioned after this meeting took place as well. That is the Indo-Pacific, Commander Singh. If we look at the interest of both the countries and the way both these nations have pursued those interests, also keeping in mind each other's concern, how do you think things have moved or played out so far and from here onwards?
I think there is a degree of convergence between India and Australia when it comes to the Indo-Pacific. And I think over the past few years, we have tried to make common cause on a number of regional as also global issues. But I'd like to say that on the Indo-Pacific, whilst it seems that we're closely coordinated and aligned, there are some differences in the way we perceive the space. And my mind goes back to this very interesting talk that Ambassador Peter Verghese, who's one of their senior diplomats, delivered in a think tank in Sydney some time back, in which he said that we consider India to be one of our closest partners. But the fact is that our perspectives are just a little bit different, in the sense that India considers the Indo-Pacific actually to be a unified strategic space in the way it combines the Indian Ocean with the Pacific. Whereas Australia really looks at this as an Asia-Pacific plus. So the idea, he says, for Australia to include the Indo-Pacific as a theme that finds place both in their defense white paper and foreign policy white paper was that India would somehow be included into the strategic dynamic of the Asia Pacific.
Okay.
And India's insistence that this actually combines the whole of the Indian Ocean and the Pacific actually dilutes the focus onto that really critical space in the Eastern Indian Ocean and the South China Sea, which really deserves attention. So I think that rhetorically we are quite with Australia and we are on the same page when it comes to the Indo-Pacific. But if you actually look at specific maritime security issues, the Australians want to actually focus more on the Eastern Indian Ocean, which is where they did their exercises when they came to us. And that is one of the things that actually is a big plus in the relationship, in that we've been able to improve our maritime relations, our Navy-to-Navy relationship. So when the Australians earlier this year, sent in a huge contingent to take part in the Indo-Pacific endeavor, which is also part of the AUS index that we do with them, the Australia-India exercises, this was a big contingent, and this was for the first time that they had sent such a large body of assets into the seas. But their focus was really on the Eastern Indian Ocean. And they really think that the Western Indian Ocean and India's insistence that the small islands throughout is something that actually takes the focus away from where we should be, where our attention should be. So I would say that that on the Indo-Pacific, yes, there are many areas in which we agree, but there are also some areas in which we disagree. Also, the treatment that China would get in the region. I think they have a concern that India is increasing differences with China, although India has not sort of brought that up, is going to in the future pose a problem for Australian policy making. We think the same about the Australians. We think that the Chinese have infiltrated their political system, and that there's limits to what we can do with Australia, and which is one of the reasons why we're not including them in the Malabar exercises. So I think there must have been some of the issues that must have been discussed. I think I'd just like to highlight two before I sort of finish this.
Okay.
Which is one is the logistics agreement. We are hearing that when the Prime Minister is here, the Australian Prime Minister, Mr. Morrison, is here. for the Raisina dialogue, there is a possibility that we might eventually sign on to a logistics agreement. I think there's a fair chance that we might sign on to the agreement, but we shouldn't be too sure of it, because even in the case of Japan, there has been some talk that we might actually not go ahead with an AXA agreement, because there is a sense that that would be construed by China as a strengthening of the Quad, and that and a military Quad, and that is not good. And second, the Japanese might use that cross services agreement more than the Indians would use Japanese bases. So I think the same logic might apply to Australia. So I'm not quite sure that that this thing should come through. This would come through. The second proposal, which also might have been discussed, is that the Australians are interested in taking maritime security to the next level. So they actually want to look beyond just bilateral exercises. And I think one of the exercises that we did with Indonesia just last month, we did a trilateral with the Australians. We did a workshop in Fremantle. And a number of proposals were discussed there, including HADR, including a fusion center. So I think some of these things on maritime security will surely have come up for discussion during this recent dialogue.
Okay, so maritime security, the mutual logistics support agreement might be on the agenda when the Prime Minister comes calling. But on the the strategic and the other diplomatic aspect of the relationship as well, how do you see the dynamics, Mr. Prasad, which have evolved over the years with respect to the bilateral relations and both countries responding to the emerging global scenario as well?
Well,
not
I
only
think
regional, global also.
One of the first things I would like to say that I think the relationship has matured from what used to be called the three commonalities of three C's, that is cricket, curry and Commonwealth. I think we have moved far away from that, and largely because it was said that these were the three common factors between India and Australia. And for Australia, India was far away. It really didn't matter for them. And for India, it was like, but that relationship has moved much, much forward, much deeper, as two of my co-panelists already described to us. The fact is, India is looking at the situation as a situation is emerging now in the global commons. Indo-Pacific is a term which is now gaining currency, has gained currency over the years. First talked about by the Australian in the Indian Parliament, way back in 2007. So since then it has gained currency, it has moved forward. But India is still, if you talk to the Australian people in conversations, they talk of the economic content of it being more predominant. And where if you talk to the American side of the situation, they would like to try to say it is a more military. So what you heard from Abhijit and Shilkal ji was the shades of that which are now coming into the play.
Okay.
So India obviously has its own calculations. China does remain an important factor for all countries, especially for Australia. But don't forget, China and Australia have very good trade relationship. That's something which cannot be discounted. India also has its own share of relationship with China in terms of economic content. So it's not, you choose either or, you need to manage these contradictions and move forward.
Okay, and also ensure that our interests are there at the top priority. One more thing, Mr. Sharma, which came up and is being talked about, is the shared interest of both the nations to go ahead and deal with the issue of terrorism or extremism. And in this meeting also, that is the 2+2 dialogue, it is said that both the nations, both the countries have decided to go ahead and keep their ears to the ground, ensure that an action is taken both in terms of information sharing, real time maybe, and to try and counter if at all there is any threat.
Yes, terrorism is one of the key areas of cooperation between India and Australia. It is not only because of India's concern, but also Australia has in the last several years faced increasing threats. There have been sleeper cells, and there have been worries about global jihadi terrorists trying to use Australia either as a launching pad or as to hide there, or sleeper cells. And Australian open society is worried about it. There have been some incidents, not this year, but in the past. So, and their intelligence organization is very particular about tracking them. And in the last 10 years, India has also forged very close intelligence relationship in the context of terrorism with major countries. So Australia falls in that rubric.
Okay.
So terrorism is crucial. But I wanted to mention that in the broader issues, there is this trade business where RCEP, for instance, Australia is as keen as Japan and the US, and that India should be part of the RCEP. Not US in that sense, but as keen as Japan.
Japan.
And some of the ASEAN countries, that India should be part of the RCEP. So, and Australia has been also pitching for India in the APEC. It wanted India to be part of the APEC, but we know who's blocking us. So, even in the trade and economy, they understand our situation and the political impact of the trade and economy. The RCEP is slightly larger than just economic thing. It is more. It has a political impact, and in that respect, Australia doesn't want to leave India behind. They have said that India's concern should be looked into, should be accommodated, just as Japan has said. So this is an important dimension. So and then about the point was mentioned about Australia, India, the three C's. Actually, our society is such that Australia is very close to us. If you talk to people because of English speaking, because of cricket, so at the level of people, Australia is very close. And the kind of Indians who go there. The Austrian ambassador, whom I knew very well when I was in Austria, she used to say, whenever she used to introduce herself, they said, you're from Australia, you play cricket. So they didn't even distinguish. Our chaps, their basic knowledge, they always, Austria, they thought it was Australia. So that is the way Australia is deeply ingrained in the common psyche.
Okay.
The good thing is that the political relations between the two, which were different, have now come up to a level which responds to this. If you were to put India, Australia in the Google, for the first numerous entries, it is cricket only. The T20, this and that. So that remains the most important, and cricket is very important in India.
But now an effort is there to go ahead and move beyond that as well, and that's why all these points which have been mentioned by you. Let me bring.
The whole thing is that we have to harness this commonality, which is deep rooted. It is close to the commonality which we have with the US.
Okay.
Because of the English language, the Commonwealth.
Okay, Commander Singh, on the security aspect and taking it off, from where Ambassador Sharma left on the issue of terrorism and on the issue of, you were also pointing out how the defense ties or per se, the way both countries try and go ahead and move the ties in the defense domain with each other. Areas like cyber technology, as cyber tech, as Ambassador Sharma was pointing out, these might be the areas which might, give that edge or give that spark to the relation on these aspects.
You're absolutely right.
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence. No, you're absolutely right. Actually, in Australia, there's been a debate about what is it that they can do better with India. And Penny Wong, who's one of their Labour Party MPs, was speaking at a leadership forum only yesterday. And she mentioned some very interesting things. One of the things she said is that there is this sense that somehow Australia has not been able to leverage this partnership for all its worth. And there's been too much focus on strategic issues in the sense that there is a feeling that she says Australia has been navigating the slipstream of big power competition. So basically, what Australia is interested in is that there is the US-China rivalry playing out, and how can the Australians position themselves in a way that they can benefit from what's happening in the Indo-Pacific. And in that, they see India as a partner because India has similar concerns. This is essentially a sort of a strategic equation that it has with. And she says that, what about trade? And I mean, Ambassador Sheil very rightly mentioned, trade is one of the areas that is giving a hard time to both the Australians and Indians. I think it was last year that the Australians came up with something that they called India Economic Strategy. And in that, Ambassador Peter Verghese, who was the author of that report, said that one of the reasons we can't go ahead with trade is that somehow India won't open up its economy. India won't sign up to a comprehensive economic partnership agreement. And the reason it doesn't open up its economy is, and Australia understands this very well, is that we are at a very different level of development. And so the logic that applies to RCEP, in that we didn't sign on to the RCEP, also applies to the CECA or the CEPA, that we will not sign on to a comprehensive agreement with Australia because we just think that opening up the sector will decimate our small industries, our farmers. And so we are in a little bit of a jam when it comes to trade. I think with technology also there is a similar thing that there's a lot that India offers, in terms of, and Penny Wong mentioned that innovation and technology is something that India is offering, but somehow there is a reluctance in Australia and Australian businesses to be leveraging that for what it's worth. So I would think that yes, the people-to-people ties are great. I think on the security front, we've made common cause on a number of issues. On the Indo-Pacific, we are fairly well coordinated. It's possible that we sign on to a logistics agreement. But until we don't sort out this thing of trade, and until we don't have a deeper relationship in terms of sharing of technology, sharing of intelligence, greater people-to-people ties, I really don't think we can really take this to the next level.
Next level. Okay. Okay. Mr. Prasad, from your point of view, from here onwards, as both Commander Singh and Mr. Sharma is pointing out, what needs to be done to take this relationship to the next level? Well, yes, there are coordinations and shared concerns and shared interests as well in several areas. But what from here?
See, one of the sectors that is actually moving and probably moving at its own pace, which we don't really get to realize, is growth in the education sector. And because Indians have been traveling all over the world, I mean, US was a favored destination, then we went to Britain, and now we're looking for other pastures. And Australia, among others, is offering you, and in fact, a lot of Indian students go to Australia. So this is where, if I would take the discussion forward, the people-to-people relationship that's where, if you look at the way the transformation of Indian relationship with America began, was when Indians started going more and studying more in America. And they started integrating with the society and understanding the Indian, and so there was a understanding of how India operates, or how India looks at things, and how the Americans look at it. And when you have this back and forth conversations in families, things started to look differently, which took a long time. Similarly, if you look at it today, I mean, the statistics kind of tell you what 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 Australian is an Indian born, migrated, and today the Australian High Commissioner to India is an Indian, Indian origin, but an Australian diplomat. So all these do add to the situation in the sense. So there are other sectors, as the co-panelists pointed out, whether it is high technology, intelligence sharing, strategic issues are for domains of governments. Let's put it that way. But where relationships grow and prosper is when people start understanding each other. And that's where the pressure moves differently, just as it happened in America. It's the Indian-American community is such a vibrant community that it worked wonders when the India-US nuclear deal was going on. So that's the way it moves.
Okay.
It moves differently.
Okay. So people-to-people context. And Mr. Sharma, final words from you on the show that apart from trade and to try and identify areas, as Commander Singh was pointing out, maybe the cyber security aspect and the technology as well. But people-to-people contact also is the key to take that next level.
Absolutely. And I would have a little difference. This mutual logistics agreement. We should go ahead with this agreement because this actually gives them confidence that India is willing to play ball, and this would also support our interest in critical technologies, because no country is going to work with you on critical technologies if you balk on some basic things, like if their ships come here and you cannot give them services.
Okay.
And what is the mutual logistics arrangement? It's basically fuel, water, power, and so these are the things which we should do.
Okay. Okay, so these are the aspects, as our panelists are pointing out. If you look at the bilateral relations between India and Australia, both the countries do share a lot of common concerns and a lot of common interests as well. But to take this relationship to the next level, both nations will have to look at some other aspects in addition to working on the relations on the trade front, maybe people-to-people contact, maybe some more sectors wherein both the nations can try and collaborate with each other. We'll come back again next week with a different topic and different set of guests. Till then, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.